The morning they left for Paris, the office felt like an airport terminal. Rolling suitcases, perfume too strong for 8 a.m., forced laughter echoing off glass walls. I watched from my desk as my team clustered near the elevators, tickets in hand, talking over each other about cafes, museums, photo spots. The excitement was real. The energy was contagious. I should have been part of it. I wasn't. Clara, our project director, strutted toward me with her sunglasses already perched on her head, as if she were stepping into a summer movie instead of a global product launch. She slowed just long enough to make sure we had an audience. "Sorry, Elena," she sang lightly, adjusting her blazer. "Not enough budget for support staff. You'll hold things down here." Support staff. The words stung like they'd been dipped in acid. I had designed every minute of the agenda. I negotiated hotels, coordinated translators, scheduled rehearsals, even built the pitch structure that Clara would be presenting as her own. And still, support staff. A few team members avoided my eyes, guilt flickering across their faces. Others looked relieved. They hadn't wanted to question Clara. No one ever did. She had a talent for making dissent feel like career suicide. "Have fun," I said, because that's what polite, dependable people say while being erased in real time. The elevator doors closed with a bright chime, cutting off their laughter. The floor felt too quiet after that, too still, like the building itself knew something wasn't right. I sat down, opened my inbox, tried to focus. 10:12 a.m. Vendor confirmation for Paris mic setup. 10:19 a.m. Reminder, rehearse demonstration flow before the pitch. 10:24 a.m. Client message. Looking forward to seeing you in person, Elena. I froze. The client believed I was going, because everyone knew I should be going. My breath caught in my throat. I typed a careful reply. Apologies for the confusion. Please confirm what you need before tomorrow's review. 30 seconds later, my phone buzzed with an international number. I hesitated, then answered. "Elena?" a voice asked, smooth, accented, undeniably tense. It was Julian, the Paris side lead who had trusted me with every detail. "Yes, I'm here," I said softly. "Where are you?" he demanded. "Your team is here, but no one can answer basic questions. They said you stayed behind? This cannot be right." My pulse pounded. "They made changes to the travel plan." A long silence. Then, "Elena, we need you. The launch is tomorrow. Without your briefing, we cannot present anything. You know that." I swallowed hard. "What exactly did they say?" "That there was not enough budget." His voice tightened. "Ridiculous. I approved your seat myself." My heart dropped. They didn't just exclude me. They erased evidence of my role, took my work, took my credit, took my place. And now Paris was already cracking under their feet. Julian exhaled sharply. "You must come. There is no one else who understands the architecture." A second buzz hit my phone, a text this time, from the client's corporate line. "Urgent. We need Elena in Paris before tomorrow's pitch. Contact immediately." I stared at the screen, stunned, anger rising like heat behind my ribs. They left me behind to claim my work as theirs. But they forgot one detail. I was the only one who actually knew the plan, and Paris had just realized it. I set the phone down slowly, a strange calm settling over me. If they thought excluding me was the end of the story, they had no idea what the aftermath would look like. In the weeks before Paris, my life shrank to a series of time zones and spreadsheets. Morning, vendor calls. Afternoon, design reviews. Evening, late-night alignment with Julian's team in France. While everyone else talked about finally seeing the Eiffel Tower, I was memorizing the electrical layout of the conference hall and making sure the demo stations wouldn't blow a circuit mid-presentation. Most nights, I was the last one to leave. Security knew me by name, so did the cleaning crew. "Big trip?" one of them asked once as I closed my laptop, shoulders aching. "Yeah," I'd answered without thinking. "Very big." At that point, I still assumed we meant all of us. Clara had made it sound that way at the start. "Elena, you're my backbone on this," she'd said during the first planning meeting, palm flat on the table like a pledge. "I need you on everything. Logistics, content, coordination. You're the only one I trust to keep this from sinking." I had believed her. She let me run the prep calls, let me lead the dry runs, let me solve problems she barely understood. But every time leadership joined a call, she stepped in front of the camera. "Don't worry about the messy details," she'd say lightly. "Elena will wrangle them." Messy details. Apparently, that's what we were calling a multi-million-euro launch now. The first warning sign was small enough to ignore. I noticed her using phrases I'd written, silent failure points, experience choreography, as if they were her own. She didn't look at me when she did it. That was how I knew it wasn't accidental. The second warning sign came in the form of a meeting I wasn't invited to. "Travel logistics sync," the calendar said, populated with everyone on the core project except me. When I asked Clara about it, she waved a hand. "Oh, it's just high-level approvals," she said. "You don't need to worry about flights and hotels. You've got enough on your plate." I almost laughed at the backwards logic. I had booked half those hotels myself. I knew the airline routes by heart. But I swallowed the response. Pick your battles, I reminded myself. We were too close to the launch. The final sign wasn't subtle at all. 2 days before departure, I still hadn't received my ticket. No confirmation email, no seat assignment, nothing but a growing knot in my stomach. I knocked on Clara's glass door. She didn't look up immediately. She was flipping through printed copies of the deck I had built. "Hey," I began carefully. "Travel hasn't sent my itinerary yet. Can you forward it?" She didn't even pretend to search her inbox. "Elena," she said, like she was soothing a child. "We had to make some tough calls. Budget cuts. Leadership wants a lean delegation. Only essential people are flying." I stared at her. "Essential," I repeated. "I'm leading the architecture walkthrough. I've been the primary contact with Julian for months." Clara exhaled dramatically, as if my logic exhausted her. "You're important, obviously," she said. "But you're operational. Everything's already set up. We don't need to fly support staff for that." Support staff. There it was again, neatly demoting me in 2 words. I felt the floor tilt just a little. "So I don't have a ticket." She smiled, thin and final. "We'll take it from here. You'll still be a hero behind the scenes." Behind the scenes. I walked back to my desk in a haze, the fluorescent lights suddenly too bright, the office noise too sharp. My inbox was full of confirmations for a trip I now wasn't on. Every line, every attachment, every schedule was proof of work that would cross an ocean without me. I had built the entire machine, and now I was being deliberately written out of the moment it came to life. For the first time since the project began, one thought cut through the noise with perfect clarity. This wasn't about budget. Clara didn't leave me behind because she couldn't afford my seat. She left me behind because she couldn't afford my presence. The first message from Paris came before noon, popping up on my screen with a sharp ping that made my nerves jump. "Julienne, quick question. Where's the vendor access link? Your team doesn't have it." I blinked at the screen. That link had been in every planning document. I sent it immediately, trying to keep my reply neutral, but 10 minutes later, message from Clara. Stop responding to things. We've got it covered. Focus on HQ tasks. HQ tasks. Translation: stay out of our way while we enjoy the trip you built. I set my phone down, but it buzzed again almost instantly. Julianne. Elena, they also don't know tomorrow's agenda. Can you confirm who presents first? My heartbeat quickened. Clara had insisted on running the dress rehearsal twice before leaving. She claimed they knew it inside out. Apparently not. I typed carefully. Walk me through what they told you. The reply came fast and bleak. The team had reversed the order of speakers. They moved the demonstration to the wrong time slot. They forgot the pre-approval protocol with the venue's technical staff. They were using the wrong product version for the showcase, one we deprecated 2 months ago. My chest tightened. I pressed a palm against my desk to steady myself. Another vibration. Another message. Julianne, did they not receive your briefing files? Nothing is aligned. Of course they received them. They just hadn't read them. Everything had been too easy when they believed I'd be there to catch the collapses, but I wasn't there, and Paris was beginning to feel it. By 2 p.m., the cracks widened into fractures. A conference coordinator emailed me directly. No one here can answer technical questions. Could you clarify the bandwidth requirements for tomorrow's demo? Bandwidth requirements? I'd documented that in 4 different places. Another message followed, this time from a vendor in France. Your team says you'll send us the final floor plan tonight. Is that correct? I stared at the screen. What floor plan? I had finished it last week. Clara had approved it. I checked the shared drive. It was gone, or rather, my version was gone. Replaced with a copy missing half the details. Wrong electrical layout, wrong equipment notes, wrong table count. Someone had overwritten it, most likely Clara, because the original had too much complexity. Too much complexity? That complexity prevented fires, literal ones. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as a thought dawned on me with slow, cold clarity. They hadn't just left without me. They had left unprepared. By 4 p.m., the messages turned desperate. From team member, Leo. Do you remember the passcode for the equipment locker? We don't have it. From Clara. Where's the vendor contract? The event manager says they don't have our authorization. From Julian. Elena, this is becoming impossible. We need you, immediately. Please call me. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. This was the consequence of pretending my role was expendable. This was the cost of erasing the person who held the architecture of everything in her head. Paris wasn't just cracking. It was caving in. At 6:12 p.m., as the winter light faded outside the office windows, my phone rang again, this time with a number I recognized instantly. My CEO. I answered, forcing my voice steady. This is Elena. Her words came clipped, tight, and cold. Elena, why is the Paris client requesting you by name? They're saying your team is lost. What on earth is happening over there? I hesitated only for a breath, just long enough to choose precision over emotion. They removed me from the trip, I said quietly. They said the budget didn't allow for my role. The silence on the line sharpened. Then the CEO spoke again, voice low with contained fury, though not at me. Pack a bag, she said. You're flying to Paris on the next plane out. I want you in that room tomorrow morning. A beat. And Elena, this time you will lead. I closed my eyes for a moment as the words settled. In Paris, my team was unraveling, but I wasn't going there to save them. I was going there to take back what was mine. I don't remember hanging up the phone. I only remember the sudden, electric stillness in my apartment as the CEO's words echoed through my mind. You're flying to Paris tonight, and tomorrow, you lead." For a moment, I just stood there, coat half on, laptop bag open on the floor, caught between the sting of being excluded and the shock of being summoned back in. Then something inside me clicked into place, quiet and solid. This wasn't a rescue mission. This was a reclamation. I grabbed my passport, closed my suitcase, and headed for the airport. The terminal was a blur of neon signs, overhead announcements, rolling luggage. I moved through security with a clarity that felt almost unnatural. While I waited at the gate, messages buzzed through my phone like a swarm of frantic insects. "Clara, please stop interfering. You're confusing things." "Leo, we're drowning here. Please, can you call?" "Julian, I booked a car to pick you up from CDG. Text me when you land." I ignored everyone except Julian. "Me, landing 7:40 a.m. local. Go ahead with the prep call without them. I'll fix the rest in person." His reply came instantly. "Julian, thank God." Somewhere over the Atlantic, while the cabin lights dimmed and passengers snored around me, I opened my laptop and pulled up the Paris files. What I found made my stomach tighten. The demo sequence was in the wrong order. The event floor plan had been edited so heavily it barely resembled the approved version. The presentation script was riddled with Clara's improvisations, phrases she had insisted were punchier, but which made us sound like amateurs who didn't understand our own product. I scrolled page after page, each mistake stacking like stones on my chest. They hadn't just left me behind. They had undone my work. Clara wanted to own the launch so badly that she'd dismantled the architecture that made it functional. The team, pulled into her gravitational field, had followed blindly, and now they were in Paris, standing on a foundation made of sand. I closed the laptop and stared into the dark, thinking of the moment she'd told me, too casually, too confidently, that I wasn't essential. She had no idea how deeply she misunderstood me. Essential wasn't a label someone could assign or remove. Essential was something proven, quietly, consistently, until removing it made the whole structure collapse. When the plane descended into Paris, dawn was just smudging the sky with lavender and gold. I stepped into the chilled air of Charles de Gaulle Airport and pulled my coat tighter around me. Julien was waiting past the arrivals gate, wearing a look I'd never seen on him before. Unfiltered relief. "Finally," he said, striding forward. "Elena, you have no idea." "Oh," I said calmly, adjusting my bag. "I think I do." He exhaled a shaky laugh. "They're disorganized, lost, fighting even. Clara is insisting she has things under control, but she doesn't," I said simply. We walked toward the exit as he filled me in. Half the equipment hadn't been set up because no one had the correct specifications. The project team had argued for an hour about the pitch order. The client's COO was already asking why the presentation seemed less aligned than expected. Clara's last message to the client had been a breezy, "We're just fine-tuning the narrative. Everything is smooth." Smooth. I almost pitied her. Almost. As the automatic doors parted and the crisp Paris air swept in, Julien turned to me. "Elena," he said quietly, "you will save this." I shook my head once. "No, I'm here to lead it." For the first time since the trip began, the balance shifted back into place. Subtle, but unmistakable. Paris hadn't broken because I stayed behind. Paris had broken because they'd tried to function without me. And now, I was finally here to show them the difference. The drive from the airport to the conference venue cut through a gray Paris morning. Wet pavement, shuttered cafes, the city still stretching itself awake. Julian spoke quickly beside me, listing the fires he'd been trying to put out since yesterday. I listened, absorbing every detail, every crack in the structure I'd once held together. They tried to rearrange the sequence without understanding the dependencies, he said. The COO was polite, but unimpressed. I nodded. That sequence took months to engineer. Changing one section breaks 3 others. He gave a humorless laugh. Yes, and yet they changed 5. By the time we reached the venue, my mind had already rebuilt the plan, quietly, methodically, the way you reconstruct a house someone else tried to redecorate with explosives. Inside, the conference hall buzzed with setup crews and early attendees. Screens flickered, lights clicked on overhead, and the air carried that mix of electricity and pressure unique to launch days. Julian led me backstage. "Your team is in the green room," he warned. "Good," I said. "Let's get this over with." The moment I stepped inside, the room fell into a stunned silence. Clara looked up from her laptop, face draining of color. "Elena?" Her voice pitched oddly, halfway between surprise and defensiveness. Why are you here?" I set my bag down with deliberate calm. "The client asked for me, and the CEO sent me." A ripple passed through the room. Leo exhaled like someone had punched relief into him. Mira, our analytics lead, lowered her coffee slowly, eyes wide. Clara recovered fast, fake confidence snapping back like elastic. "Well, that's fine, but everything is handled. We just need to polish the flow." I glanced at the whiteboard behind her. The presentation order was written in frantic marker strokes, arrows drawn and crossed out, notes scribbled in different handwriting. My stomach tightened. "Handled?" I repeated evenly. "You've scheduled the demonstration before the technical validation, moved the COO's segment to the wrong time slot, and your deck references a product version we aren't even using." A flush crept up Clara's neck. "We're adapting on the fly. That's what leaders do." "No," I said, and my voice didn't rise. It cooled. "Leaders prepare, so no one has to fly." Julian stepped forward. "If Elena doesn't rebuild this, we will embarrass ourselves in front of the client. And the board." Clara turned on him, eyes narrowing. "This is my launch. I lead the narrative." "Then you should have learned it," I said. The room went silent again, this time heavier, more final. I walked to the table, opened my laptop, and connected it to the external monitor. My files lit up the screen, organized, color-coded, complete. "We're doing this once," I said. "Correctly." Without raising my tone, I restructured the entire presentation. Restored the original sequence, corrected the technical notes, fixed the vendor instructions, rewrote parts of Clara's script that risked misrepresenting the product, reallocated roles based on competence, not title. I didn't assign Clara anything she couldn't handle, which was limited. She watched, jaw tight, as the team gravitated toward me instinctively, gathering around the screen, asking questions, taking notes, nodding with quiet urgency. For the first time, they weren't ignoring me. They were seeing me. Because Paris had stripped away Clara's illusion of control. Julian hovered near my shoulder, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You just rebuilt 12 weeks of prep in 40 minutes, he murmured. "I never stopped preparing," I replied. Clara bristled. "I still lead the pitch. The CEO put me in charge." I turned to her slowly. "The CEO sent me here. The client asked for me. You may speak," I clicked to the next slide, but you will not lead content you don't understand." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She'd spent weeks pushing me aside. Now, she had nowhere left to stand. When everything was finally back in order, Julian checked his watch. "We present in 90 minutes. "Yes," I said, closing my laptop. "And we're ready." The team straightened with a collective breath, the kind that shifts a room's gravity without anyone realizing it. Behind me, Clara whispered sharply, "You blindsided me." I didn't turn around. "You left me behind," I said. "Paris just returned the favor." And for the first time since this entire ordeal began, I felt the quiet certainty of a woman stepping back into the space that had always been hers, whether anyone had admitted it or not. The conference hall filled slowly, the kind of anticipatory buzz that vibrates beneath the skin. Rows of suited executives took their seats, murmuring to one another as screens flickered to life. Soft amber lights washed over the stage, warming the edges of the massive LED display that would carry our fate. 90 minutes. That's all it had taken to rebuild everything they had unraveled. And now it was time to step into the light. Backstage, the team gathered behind me. Even their breathing seemed quieter. The reality of what they'd done, what they'd risked by cutting me out, hung over them like invisible fog. Clara stood slightly apart, arms wrapped around her folder, jaw locked to hide the tremor at its corners. Every so often she glanced at the audience as if trying to summon confidence by proximity. Julian approached me, lowering his voice. "They're expecting the launch to start strong," he said. "If Clara opens the way she planned—" "She won't," I replied, because the plan she had prepared would sink the entire presentation in the first 5 minutes. It was vague, flashy, and dangerously inaccurate. A performance designed to make her look bold while making the company look incompetent. Julian inhaled with relief. Good. A stage manager lifted a hand. 2 minutes. The energy tightened. I turned to the team. Their eyes met mine. Some nervous, some hopeful, some apologetic, but all of them were focused, present, ready. This was the version of them I recognized. And then Clara spoke, voice low but sharp enough to bite. "I will open," she said. "This is still my launch." I met her gaze evenly. "And you will introduce the project. Nothing more." Her eyebrows lifted. "You can't—" "The CEO sent me," I said softly. "The client asked for me, and your actions put this deal at risk." Her mouth opened, but before she could form a defense, the stage lights brightened. The room darkened. The first cue hit. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was showtime. The host stepped to the podium, welcomed the crowd, and then, exactly on cue, gestured toward the wing. "Please welcome the strategy team." Clara stepped out first, her heels striking the floor a little too quickly, her smile stretched thin. Applause rose. She stood center stage, breathing visibly, trying to command a calm she didn't possess. "Good morning," she began, voice slightly too bright. "We're thrilled to introduce—" Her second sentence faltered. Because the COO, our client's most decisive executive, was staring at her with polite confusion, then scanning the wings, then whispering to his colleague, "Where is Elena?" Even from backstage, I heard it. Clara heard it too. Her voice wavered. "We, have prepared—" A spotlight shifted. The stage manager nodded to me. Time. I stepped out. The shift was instant. The COO straightened. The murmurs quieted. Even the air seemed to tighten, like the room itself recognized who carried the real architecture. "Bonjour," I said, steady, grounded. "Let's begin." I moved past Clara, calmly, not triumphantly, but undeniably, and took the center of the stage. She froze there, trapped between stepping forward and stepping aside. Eventually, she chose the latter. The next 40 minutes were a kind of controlled electricity. I walked the audience through the system architecture they had nearly misrepresented. I clarified the dependencies they had broken. I restored the logic, the simplicity, the elegance of the strategy we had spent months crafting. But I also did something more precise. Without naming names, I revealed, in clean, neutral language, the magnitude of the errors they had attempted to present. Not to humiliate, to protect the truth. Our original design, I explained, clicking to a corrected slide, ensures stability during peak load. The early draft presented this morning did not reflect that. This is the accurate model. I saw the COO's expression shift from confusion to relief to unmistakable respect. Clara's, from the corner of my eye, shifted too, but in the opposite direction. By the time I concluded, the room erupted into assured applause. Not polite, not obligatory, genuine. Julian stepped onto the stage, shook my hand, and whispered, "You saved the launch." "No," I corrected. "I restored it." As the lights dimmed, Clara remained in the shadows, shoulders caved inward, the weight of every choice suddenly visible on her face. The aftermath had begun. The applause was still fading when we stepped backstage, the bright heat of the stage lights giving way to the cooler, breath-held quiet behind the curtain. My team clustered around me, not with the nervous energy they'd had all morning, but with something steadier. Respect. Real, earned respect. "Elena, you were incredible," Leo said, voice low but sincere. Mira nodded, cheeks flushed. "We didn't realize how wrong things were until you fixed them. I'm sorry I raised a hand gently. "We'll talk later. Right now, we focus on the client." They understood. That was the thing about competence. It recalibrated people. Julian appeared beside me, his expression somewhere between exhausted and triumphant. "The COO wants a private debrief. Just you." Just me. The words sat warm in my chest. Not arrogant, not vindictive, just accurate. But Clara heard them. She was standing by the wall, half in shadow, gripping a folder so tightly the edges bent under her fingers. Her lipstick had faded, and the confident tilt she usually held had collapsed inward. "They want you?" she asked Julian, her voice strained. "They requested Elena specifically," he said. "They said she's the only one who understands the architecture." Clara swallowed. "But I'm the project director." "Titles don't matter when the work doesn't show it," Julian replied, not unkindly, just honestly. For a moment, Clara looked almost translucent, like the truth was draining the color from her. She opened her mouth to argue, but no argument existed that could survive the evidence she had created. The COO himself stepped backstage then, saving her from trying. "Elena," he said warmly, extending his hand. "Superb work. You carried the whole room." "Thank you," I said, my tone professional, steady. "I'm glad we could realign everything." He nodded once, sharply. "Walk with me." As he led me away, I caught a glimpse of my team watching with quiet pride. But Clara, she watched with something else, something brittle. Loss. Not of Paris, not of the spotlight, but of the narrative she thought she controlled. The debrief was smooth and brief. The COO confirmed the deal. He praised clarity, preparation, consistency, all the things Clara had dismissed as support work. When we returned backstage, the team was buzzing with relief. Clara stood apart again. She approached me cautiously, like someone nearing a ledge. "Elena, can we talk?" I met her eyes. "We can?" She hesitated, then dropped her voice to a whisper. "You undermined me." "No," I said, calm as cool steel. "You undermined yourself. I restored what you broke." Her jaw clenched. "You didn't have to take over." I didn't look away. "You left me behind. You took my work. You replaced essential structures with shortcuts. And you dragged a whole team into a disaster you didn't understand." Each sentence was measured, precise, unemotional. Clara's hands shook. "I was trying to prove myself." "And you did," I said softly. "Just not the way you intended." Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with the sharp sting of self-recognition. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed. "CEO, call me when you're done. We need to discuss next steps. Without Clara." Without Clara. She didn't see the message, but she felt the shift when I stepped slightly away to read it. Her voice broke. What happens now?" I didn't twist the knife. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't humiliate her. Quiet justice doesn't need theatrics. "That depends on what you do next," I said gently. "For now, focus on honesty. Today revealed everything." She closed her eyes as if bracing for impact. Hours later, back at the hotel, HR's message arrived. Subject: immediate review. Action: Clara to be removed from leadership of the Paris launch. Formal evaluation upon return. My team received the update before I could even process it. Their reply messages were understated, almost reverent. "Mira, this was overdue." "Leo, thank you for stepping in." "Julian, you didn't just save the launch, you saved us." I closed the laptop slowly. The consequences weren't loud, they weren't dramatic, but they were irrevocable. Clara had built her entire ascent on the assumption that I was replaceable. Paris had shown her, and everyone else, the truth she tried so hard to bury. I was never the one who needed the trip. The trip needed me. The flight home from Paris didn't feel triumphant. It felt quiet. Not the quiet of exhaustion or the lull after adrenaline. A different kind of quiet. The kind that settles when truth finally lands where it always belonged. I watched the city shrink beneath the clouds and thought of the moment everything shifted. The COO shaking my hand, the client team thanking me, the CEO insisting we talk without Clara. It wasn't vindication, I felt then. It was alignment. A return to equilibrium after weeks of imbalance. I hadn't taken anything from Clara. She had simply forced the world to see what she had tried to hide. Her leadership was an illusion built on someone else's work. Mine. When we landed, the team trailed behind me into the terminal. They were quieter, moving with the humbled awareness of people who had seen their own weaknesses reflected back too clearly. But they were also softer, more grounded. Leo approached first. "Elena," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, I want to apologize for going along with everything, for not speaking up." His voice cracked slightly. It wasn't performative. It was real. "You did what you thought was safe," I said. "But safety isn't the same as loyalty." He nodded hard, absorbing the impact. Mira stepped forward next. "We should have fought for you," she whispered. "You carried this entire project, and we let someone push you aside." I didn't punish them with silence. "Now you know better. Act like it." Their relief was palpable. Clara was the last to disembark. She lingered behind the group, sunglasses hiding eyes that no longer carried confidence. HR was waiting for her just past the arrival doors. 2 representatives, badges visible, faces serious. I didn't stay to listen. Whatever conversation followed wasn't mine to witness. Some endings don't need an audience. Back at headquarters the next morning, the atmosphere shifted the moment I walked through the glass doors. Conversations lowered. Heads turned. Not in the way they had when I'd been excluded, when my absence was convenient, but in recognition. Respect, once withheld, returns like a tide. My badge clicked at my office door. The inbox was already full. A message from the CEO sat at the top. Subject: New role consideration. Elena, your performance in Paris demonstrated not only excellence, but leadership. Let's meet this week to discuss expanding your role. You'll head all international deployments going forward. A. I read it twice, not because I doubted it, but because it marked a clean line between before and after. Before, I was the quiet force behind the scenes. After, I was the architect of the outcomes that mattered. As I set my bag down, a small white envelope caught my eye. Someone had slid it under my door. I opened it carefully. Inside, a handwritten note. Thank you for saving us from ourselves. We won't forget it. Your team. I closed the card slowly, letting the words settle. Not praise, not flattery. An acknowledgement. The difference mattered. Later that afternoon, I stepped into a meeting room where the Paris team had gathered for a retrospective. They sat straighter when I entered. Clara's seat was empty, permanently. I didn't lecture them. I didn't recount what I had done. I didn't mention the consequences they'd already seen unfold. Instead, I spoke plainly. Let this be the lesson, I said, hands resting lightly on the table. Preparation isn't optional. Expertise isn't replaceable. And no launch, no matter how beautiful the city, is worth more than integrity. No one breathed. I continued. You left without the person who knew the plan. Paris made that clear. Now we rebuild, not the project, but the way we work. Slow nods circled the room. They understood. This wasn't revenge. This was course correction. Justice, after all, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a shift, a realignment, a quiet aftermath where truth finally stands unobstructed. When I returned to my office, sunlight was spilling across my desk, catching on the edge of my laptop and a small paper plane someone had folded from a printed itinerary. I smiled. Paris hadn't been the victory they'd imagined. It had been the reckoning they needed. And as I sat down, calm, steady, exactly where I was meant to be, I realized they didn't just go to Paris without me. They proved why I belonged everywhere they went. The aftermath wasn't mine to endure. It was mine to own.